Today we are going to have a little bit different agenda for our meeting. We'll cover all the items, but in a different order. We will start with the pledge, and then we will follow that up with our speaker, Catharine Baker. Marjorie, will you please lead us in the pledge?
Yes, if everyone would stand and face the flag. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. The Honorable Catharine Baker is up next. I'm sorry I don't have a bio, and Steve McCoy Thompson's not here to introduce you, so
You can make it up.
I will. The first time that I met Catharine Baker, she doesn't even remember, but it was many years ago that I was attending an insurance conference in Sacramento, and then each of the agents went and visited their representative in their office. And I talked to so many agents that they went to their office and they only got to talk to staff. But I went to this meeting with 4 or 5 other guys and girls, women, and Catharine came down and talked with us for about 40 or 50 minutes, and it was really eye-opening, great experience, and we were honored that she took the time to meet with her constituents. So without further ado, Catharine Baker.
Thank you. Ooh, well, that microphone works well. And you know, I don't know if anybody else has this problem. Gentlemen, don't you hate it when the mask sticks to your earring? It's just such a bother. Here we go. Well, thank you for having me. I'm very grateful to get to visit. I know it's a different schedule today. I want to start by saying not only thank you, Rotary has a very special place in my heart. My grandfather and Uncle Fred founded the Rotary in my hometown, and I'm pretty sure my family single-handedly staffed our annual barbecue every year. So, and I was very fortunate to be a recipient of the Rotary Youth Leadership Award and Program, and it helped me with some skills. And I'm grateful to Rotarians and the work you do in our community. I also want to say my condolences on the loss of one of your Rotarian family members. And I promise to be done by 12:30. I'm going to need a little help, so someone can do the sign that no speaker likes to get. I'm sure Gino from my office at Hope Fenton will be more than happy to give me the call it quit sign. So thank you.
You want a 10-minute, a 5-minute?
Yeah, you can do all kinds of hand gestures. I'll interpret them all kinds of ways. So, well, I was very honored to be the state assembly member for this area. I will always feel a resident and representative of our area by osmosis. And but now I've got a couple different things going on, one of which I'm here to visit with you about today. I am very grateful to be back at Hope Fenton Law Firm here in Pleasanton. We're very much a part of the community here, and I know one of your Rotarians, Gino, I'm looking at you while you're reading, is also part of that. But the hat I'm wearing today is as a commissioner with the Fair Political Practices Commission. Raise your hand if you've ever heard of it. It's okay. No, the FPPC, yes, if you've been involved politically at all, you may, as a candidate, as a donor to a campaign, as a participant or donor in a ballot initiative, or perhaps as an elected or appointed official who had to follow some ethics norms. The FPPC, and I may go ahead and let that first slide after you've had a nice bite, I'm so sorry. The FPPC is the watchdog for California's ethics commission for the whole state. And I've been on the commission for a little over 9 months now. And we can go ahead and go to the next slide. In fact, I'm happy to stand by there.
No, it's okay.
It might take me out of the deal. So the FPPC is a state commission. It has this very specific purpose of promoting the integrity of local and state government by fair and impartial enforcement of our ethics and transparency and accountability rules. That doesn't sound too terrible, does it? It's an honor to get to be a part of that mission. Next slide. A little bit about the history of the FPPC before I go into what on earth is it that you're doing, Catherine. Proposition 9 was passed in 1974, shortly after the Watergate experience, and it came with a very specific mission to create laws related to campaigns and who's giving to campaigns, who's influencing them, how are the campaigns spending the money they're given, to lobbying rules, who's lobbying, where are they getting that money, what are they lobbying on behalf of, and what are the conflicts of interest or potential conflicts of interest that our appointed and elected officials may have. No surprise that this happened right after the Watergate era, of course. But you know, many countries don't have these types of principles and rules. They don't have any agency that makes sure that there are transparency in campaigns, in government conflicts of interest or otherwise. I can rattle off a couple of those countries, but we can probably all think of what they are. We should be very proud that we have them. Next slide. So a little bit about the commission. Who's on it and what is it all about? Well, first of all, it is nonpartisan and independent. I think we're technically within the executive branch of government, but we're an independent agency. The governor appoints 2 members to the commission, the chair, who is the only full-time salary paid person, and then 1 other member of the commission. And then statewide officers appoint additional members. So there's the Secretary of State, the Attorney General, and the State Controller. These are all supposed to be, I think, nonpartisan offices, and this is certainly a nonpartisan commission. I will let you know that I was appointed by Betty Lee, the state's controller, who's kind of like the auditor and budget watchdog for the state of California. Little interesting point for you. She is a Democrat, and as many of you may know, I'm a Republican. I'm a Catharine Baker Republican, my own sort of brand. And you might think to yourself, well, gee, why is that? It's actually in the statute that created this body that you can't have all the members of the commission just be from the same party. In fact, if the other statewide office holders, the governor, the attorney general, and the secretary of state are all members of the same party, and they are in California, the controller must appoint someone from the other most prominent political party. It has to be somebody registered with that party. So she was required to appoint a Republican and had to go through a process for doing that. And I think that is a good thing. I would like to see more requirements. You know, there's many boards on commissions, the speaker or the Senate Pro Tem and the governor and other state officers get to appoint people to. And I would advocate in Sacramento, if you're going to create a body or create appointments, ought to require that the other side has to have representation. They might not be the majority, but their voice needs to be at the table. And we are at this commission. Next slide. Thank you. So a little bit about who we are, actually. So our chair is Richard Maddich. He is an attorney by background. He practiced campaign finance law for a law firm that tended to represent more center left candidates in the political world, consultants and lawyers. There's a law firm that's a Republican law firm and a Democratic law firm. And it's okay. It's not something to get too riled up about. It's just kind of the way it is. And he's from one. I'm vice chair of the commission. And certainly an attorney, but not so much from a political law firm. Fenton, we are not really engaged in that way. But I have practiced election law and election integrity provisions for 16 years. And then Commissioner Dodson Wilson, he's the former clerk or parliamentarian for, I think, almost 30 years, recently retired from the California State Assembly. Commissioner Frank Cardenas, who is in Los Angeles area. He is someone who was appointed by the last Attorney General, and he's been on the Los Angeles County Redistricting Commission. And then our most recent commissioner is Commissioner Abby Wood. She's a professor in political transparency and campaign finance law at USC. So any people want to say fight on, now's your opportunity to do it. Those are the 5 members of the commission. Next slide. And a little bit quick facts and figures about what we do. We'll get into some nitty gritty as well. This is about as nitty gritty as it. About a $15 million agency. We have oversight over 500,000 public officials in the state of California, not federal officials, so not our congressmen or state senators or presidential candidates. But if you're on the ballot in California, other than those 3 seats, you are someone that we have oversight over in your campaigns, including over 2,000 lobbyists, registered lobbyists, have to register, and over 20,000 campaign committees and candidate. And those committees are basically your political organization. So if there's a ballot initiative for a bond, all of the back and forth about downtown Livermore and whether to zone for this or zone for that or approve this or that project, same thing in Pleasanton, those campaign organizations are police, and we have oversight over them. Next slide, please. Now,
Did it not go?
it doesn't want to go. Let's hope it goes. There we go. Okay. So what is it really that we do? I've mentioned watchdog. I've mentioned ethics and campaigns and transparency. There's 5 primary areas that we're involved in. Campaign disclosures, and I'll show you a little bit about what that means. And that includes who is paying for campaign material and messages to you. Where is the money coming from? How are campaigns and their organizations spending that money? Contribution limits, we set the contribution limits using a formula that's dictated by statute. We also have transparency about lobbyists and conflicts of interest. So what does that mean? That means when your city council member or your state assembly member has a financial interest or potential benefit from a decision that they are making, you should know. And they should also not participate in that. We're the ones with oversight over that. And then rules about gifts and honoraria and benefits that officials receive. Next slide. Okay, so in the campaign disclosure box, you've seen things like this in your mailbox. I bet you got all kinds of mail from me when I was in the legislature and campaigns. And what we're about is making sure that there is information on that mailer, on that TV ad, on that social media ad, even on the airplane that flies above with the message after it that says who paid for that ad. You deserve to know who paid for that material. It's part of your transparency and our transparency rules. And in fact, a few years ago, there were actually rules to require that the top 3 donors to that mailer and that organization have to be disclosed as well. Next slide, please. Those are just some examples. The campaign disclosure also means how do you track down how much money a candidate or an organization has raised and how have they spent it. When a candidate receives your hard-earned money, they actually are required by statute to hold it in trust, that they can only spend it on political, legislative, or a governmental purpose. They can't spend it on a new car or remodeling their home in Hawaii, which we'll get to that in a minute. And one of the ways that you can find out is you go to the Secretary of State's website called Cal Access. That name's going to change in a while. And you can see this is for a proposition. I know it's hard to see where you are, but you can see all the people who contributed to Proposition 3 and how the money is spent. And so that's another part of campaign disclosure. Next slide, please. All right, we also set the contribution limits by statute. I mentioned that. They're high, depending on the office. And that's all I'm going to tell you for now, because there's more interesting things to say. Next slide. Okay, lobbying disclosure. This is actually John Moffat. I remember meeting him. You can go to the same Secretary of State's website and find out who's a registered lobbyist. This is someone who's paid professionally to advocate for someone, not a volunteer, but to opt to advocate. How much money are they paid and by whom? Less disclosed is whom they are speaking to. Like I met with this assembly member, this state senator, or this person in the governor's office. We're working on transparency rules about that, but you can see who they are getting money from and how much they're spending it on for that particular client. So that's important as well. Next slide. Okay, the gifts and income disclosure. If you've ever served on a commission or a board or city council, if you have decision-making power and you're actually paid for it, you have to fill out Form 700. That's the terminology it's referred to. And this basically discloses what are your primary sources of income and properties so that the public can understand if you may have a conflict of interest. And that goes a lot to real property, like if your house is really close to where a new development will be or a new water piping or something, but also what your stocks are. And you know, if you're about to vote on something related to Amazon, if you own a whole lot of Amazon, maybe you shouldn't be voting on it. So next slide. The structure, there's a 5-person commission. We have an executive director, and then we have additional divisions. Legal and enforcement are the big ones. Administration is basically your IT and human resources. Great people. But I'm going to say a little bit about the legal and enforcement divisions. Next slide. Legal. We provide advice to campaigns, candidates, potential candidates, lobbyists, all the people that we regulate. They can pick up the phone or email us and ask us, hey, how am I supposed to do this? What am I supposed to do about that? How do I disclose on this form? And so that you are able to comply with the rules in advance. It's kind of your responsibility to do that, but it's our responsibility to make it easy. And so we give advice to almost 20,000 inquiries a year from candidates. If you're ever thinking of running for office, or you are helping somebody who is, and I know a lot of people in this room are, I get calls all the time about, hey, am I supposed to file this way or that way? How do I disclose? I always give the advice, and then I say, contact the FPPC, get that information in advance For one thing, it's a complete defense if somebody files a complaint against you for doing it wrong, because we told you to do it that way. But very important to remember the legal advice that we give. Next slide, please. We also do a lot of education and enforcement programs. So we hold trainings on how to file your documents. If you're going to be a campaign treasurer, maybe there's someone in this room with a little financial background, you just know how to balance a checkbook, and your friend has asked you to be their campaign treasurer. Well, you're going to want to make sure you know more than your CPA license. You're going to want to make sure to take some of the free trainings that we provide. But we also have an enforcement division. This is actually like a prosecutor's office. And they're the ones who receive complaints on our website or through audits of campaigns and entities that they may have misspent their money and failed to be transparent or made decisions they're not allowed to make because of conflict of interest. Now, this enforcement division is very much like a prosecutor's office. So I want to tell you a little bit about some of the work they've done, just to give you an example. Next slide. I'll start with the one in the middle. Anybody recognize that gentleman? Mark Peterson was the district attorney, so the chief law enforcement officer for Contra Costa County, which was 2/3 of my assembly district. He was found to have used campaign funds for personal purposes. He served as his own treasurer, which is often a red flag, and he spent over $60,000 on clothing, hotels, and personal benefit. Well, we caught him, and he was separately criminally prosecuted by the Department of Justice, and we were the ones who found through our audit process that he was misspending your funds. He's now disbarred, and I don't know if he had to serve home confinement or if he actually had to serve some jail time. The other two are examples of what you would just call money laundering, where an employer really supports someone and tells all their employees, you know what, you go ahead and give the maximum contribution to this campaign because we've already given the amount we're allowed and we'll reimburse you. Well, doesn't that sound like a great way to not be transparent and to break the law? Well, it's actually something that we catch, I don't want to say on a regular basis, but that's exactly what we look out for as well. Next slide. Additional major enforcements. These two are big ones. A big part of why I'm on the commission and proud of the work that we do. The County of Los Angeles last year had to pay over $1 million fine to the FPPC because they, as a county, used taxpayer dollars to advocate with their voters on passing a sales tax. So think about this. BART did it in 2016. They had a bond measure on the ballot, and they used your public resources to encourage you to vote for it. They can't do that. Your public dollars are meant to be spent not on campaign or political purposes. And in my time on the commission, we've already prosecuted 2 other jurisdictions that misused campaign taxpayer dollars for political purposes. Do you want your city or your county to go out there and try to encourage you to vote for a sales tax measure that gives them a whole bunch of money in the future? And so that's one of the largest fines I think they've ever had to pay, certainly the county. And that's one of the things that we're cracking down on.
Yeah.
But this second one, I'm coming up on time.
I was just gonna ask a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So that top one, the LA County, did any individual have to suffer any consequences?
Yeah. So the question is, if you can hear, did an individual have to suffer a consequence? And no, because the jurisdiction is the one that has made that decision to do it. However, there can be separate criminal prosecutions if it was found that they broke a law, criminal, like they can go to jail, and that one particular person may have done it in other ways that we don't have jurisdiction over. We have jurisdiction over if they spend that money. It's going to be a little bit complicated. If they spend that money on a campaign, they have to disclose that. Our hook to them is that they don't disclose it. Separately, an attorney general or district attorney has to prosecute them for actually doing the spending itself. So we have to, our hook is that they didn't disclose they were engaged in campaign purposes because we don't have jurisdiction over criminal penalties. We refer those cases to the local district attorney and the attorney general for them to prosecute not only the county, but I suppose if they found in their investigation there was someone who broke the law, they could go after them individually. We can only get the jurisdiction for not disclosing their political purpose. Anyway, a little bit more complicated than you want there. Leave it to a lawyer to make it complicated. This is a sad one, this last one. That's Joe Canciamia. He was the chief elections officer and clerk recorder in Contra Costa County. former assembly member, former school board member. And we caught him spending over $130,000 of campaign funds to remodel his vacation home in Hawaii, to take trips to Asia, and a lot of other things. And he paid the largest fine we were able to hit him with was $5,000 per transaction, which would have been about $75,000, but he did it in 2 different campaigns. So he had a campaign for judge where he raised money and used that money, and he had a campaign for clerk recorder and used that money. So we hit him for both of those. We were able to impose a $130,000 fine. We referred the case to the district attorney in Contra Costa County. And here's where your blood is really going to boil. You may have seen the editorial in the Mercury News or East Bay Times a couple weeks ago. It's on July 28th. The district attorney sentenced him, or the judge sentenced him to 1 year in jail. But the district attorney pled that down to you can serve at the home in Hawaii that you actually used campaign money to remodel. Doesn't have to spend a day in jail and is going to, doesn't have to even come back to California. And I'm going to give you a lunch indigestion. He gets to keep his pension because she only prosecuted the judge campaign violations. So he loses that pension, but he gets to keep his clerk recorder pension. And I was very upset when I saw that because I know the FPPC didn't do that. We fined him when we could, and we said, here, prosecutor, go after him. We are now sponsoring a bill in the legislature that is to increase the maximum penalty that an individual who egregiously violates campaign finance rules. I'm not talking about the folks who do their very best and they blow it. I mean, they do the best they can. These things can be a land. Talking about the folks who, like Mark Peterson and Joe Cancy in the end, it's egregious. To originally we asked it to be triple the money you misspent. So you would have been on the hook for over $3,000 or $4,000, $100,000, and had to come out of his personal money instead of you just pay it off with your other campaign. There's a bill, the Senate reduced it to double the penalty. Okay, we still sponsor the bill. It's in the legislature right now, and it's either going to live or die and become law in the next month. So we'll keep an eye out for that. I can't change how it's criminally handled in Contra Costa in the district attorney's office, but I can tell you when I'm on this commission, my name's associated with it. We're going after this as much as we can. Next slide. I'm almost done because I got the thing. These are just some issues that really matter to me on the commission, making sure there's meaningful transparency. So it's not buried for the public. And we're not trying to do gotcha for the campaigns that are trying their best to comply with the rules. These are complicated transparency rules. Some of them aren't even intuitive sometimes. So I have a mission to make sure we're focusing on the bad guys, we're focusing on transparency, and we're trying to help the public comply with these rules. I want to make sure we educate people beforehand. I'm very focused on something called behest payments. Really what that should say is request payments. This is when an elected official goes to you and says, will you please give to this charity? Maybe their name is on the gala board for the PTA, or it's for different foundations. There's so many organizations here in our area. Maybe they're on a Rotarian's invitation to give to a nonprofit cause. When an elected official asks you to give money to a nonprofit, they need to disclose that. And here's why, because elected officials sometimes set up nonprofits that they control as another source of influence and funding. And guess what? Their spouse happens to work for that nonprofit too. So we try to bring more transparency to that. I'm very proud of the work we're doing there. A couple other areas. And then the misuse of funds by government entities. Last slide, I think, is coming up. This is where you can play a role. You can contact me anytime and I'll make sure you have my information. If you see a mailer that you're saying, hey, you know what? This looks like they're advocating for me to do something and they're using my taxpayer funds. Or I can't tell who did this mailer. This looks like a transparency problem. You can take a picture of that, whatever you see that is troubling to you, and upload it, and we'll investigate it and see if it is the case. And we'll reach out to the folks that we think are responsible to see if they've just gotten it wrong, or if they're really getting it wrong with bad intent. So that's the work of the FPPC. The last slide is my contact information, which I'll keep up for you. And I'm proud of the work that we're getting to do. In the short time I've been there, we have been cracking down on that misuse of public funds for campaign purposes, on those behest payments that officials may misuse. without keeping good nonprofit partnerships from happening. For example, if our supervisor last year reached out to all of us to give N95 masks to this nonprofit to distribute in the community, that's a good thing. We want those kind of public-private partnerships. We just don't want abuse of that system. And then transparency. Yesterday, I authored an op-ed that's in the Sacramento Bee to end the practice that some campaigns, both sides of the aisle, are doing. And that is where you go to make a contribution. Let's say you take your $100 and it's your hard-earned money and you make an online contribution and they automatically sign you up for recurring monthly contributions. And they make it really hard for you to find out where that is and really hard to find out how to discontinue it and even harder or impossible to get the money back. Well, we're sponsoring a bill to stop that. If you want to do recurring contributions, that's fine, but it has to be with your express consent and instructions on how to end it. And they auto refund what you did not consent to. That's the kind of work I've been up to lately and happy to get to do it. So that was a bit of a whirlwind because I know you have somewhere to be, but can I answer any questions about the work? Gino, big surprise. That's be a good question.
On the ballot initiatives.
Yeah.
When they have to give a description, your committee have any oversight about the role of that?
Yeah. Great question. I'll restate it as well. When there's a ballot initiative, both locally and especially at the state level, I bet that's what you're thinking. Does the commission have, who writes that ballot summary? And do we have control over that? We do not. It's the Attorney General, who is a political position. And I'm a big advocate of taking that role out of the position of Attorney General, because I think it should be the nonpartisan independent state auditor or legislative analyst office who writes that ballot title summary, not someone who not only writes it to go the way they want, but then endorses a position on that and campaigns for it and receives campaign contributions for the people who are for or against. So thank you for pointing that out. That is going to take a ballot initiative to change, because there really isn't a critical mass in the legislature currently to do that. And I want to say, it's not just Democrats in California who do that. There are Republicans in heavily Republican states who also are very manipulative in the ballot title and summary. Thanks for helping me find a good vocabulary. Yes?
Good to see you, Catherine.
Yeah,
Thanks
see
for
you.
being here. Just curious, how do you how do you catch these people? Are you getting tips or is it
Great
staff?
question.
Or,
Yeah.
I mean,
So how do you catch these people?
Yeah.
Great question. There's several different ways. That AdWatch app that I told you you can load and send a picture, that's one way. Somebody sends us a picture. On our website, you can file a complaint anonymously where you just say, hey, I think this candidate is misusing campaign funds. Can you take a look? And, or you can sign an actual complaint. The anonymous complaints tend to be a little bit, we realize that people who want to become anonymous might be whistleblowers, but they also might be someone who's using the campaign process to hurt their political opponents. So that's another way. Additionally, we also are part of a random audit system. So we work with the Franchise Tax Board to randomly audit campaigns. That's how Joe Canciamia and Mark Peterson were discovered. So we did a random audit, and in the course of the audit, found that there's a problem here. So that's another way. We can also initiate complaints. So when there's a newspaper article that comes out about an individual misusing nonprofit funds when they're supposed to, I want to say, have a conflict of interest, their spouse works for the nonprofit, or they haven't filed a form that they should file to be transparent about the potential conflicts of interest, we can assert our own. And it's either assigned to the commissioner or an individual commissioner to do that. And I'll tell you that audit process. So I ran for the assembly 3 election cycles in a row. 2 of them I was randomly audited because they literally pick out of a roll of balls the district numbers. And twice in a row I was audited, and both times they said, you're doing everything right. Just keep doing it. We don't have anything to change, not a comma, nothing. And that's the outcome that you want. So yes, hello there. Good to see you.
Thank you very much for your service. We only hope you come back to service.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Very nice. I love our community. So was there a question with that? You're just buttering me up.
Citizen files a complaint. How long does it take to investigate and report?
Yeah, great question. So when they first file, I'll tell you a little bit quick about the process. When you file a complaint, within 5 days, the person that's complained against, we have to notify them and say, hey, somebody filed a complaint against you. And we give them 2 weeks to respond, to say, hey, give us your response. And then the commission initial step is to decide if it's necessary to open an investigation and just see if there's, they can't answer it right away. They have to go look and see if there's anything. Doesn't mean there is something, it just means they need more time. They need more than 2 weeks to decide. And if that happens, the enforcement division then engages in a investigation. We in the commission, I have a firewall between me and the enforcement division because we're the judges and they're the prosecutors. So I don't know who's being investigated until it comes up to me for a decision. And what I have found so far is some of the complaints take several years, which is a little frustrating for me. We've started a new process called streamlining, where what looks like the small, low public harm violations can be streamlined and handled much more quickly so that time is more efficiently spent on the Joe Cancianias of the world, or the County of Los Angeles, or other jurisdictions that are really blowing it, so that those can go faster. And I will get my first report on how old our cases are in December. And I'll be happy to come back and visit or contact you and let you know. But that's one of the things I care a lot about, because as the person is sitting there waiting for the resolution of the complaint, if they've done wrong, they're not being brought to justice. If they've done everything right and it's just a political attack against them, and trust me, my eyes are wide open, the FPPC complaint process is used for that all the time, they deserve to have a quick resolution. So the oldest case I've seen is from 2015, and some of the youngest cases are from the last 2 years. Sometimes it also depends on how quickly the other side gives us information, how much they cooperate, or if they're going to drag their feet. Thanks for asking. But we have thousands of cases before us every year. Yeah, that was a lot. I know. Oh, was there one more?
Yeah,
can I do a lightning round one? I'll try to be
question
short.
in like 5 parts, so it may go.
Oh, okay, 5-part question.
No, actually, and this may not even be kind of associated with what we're talking about, but I'm just curious, like, what are the allowable uses for these funds that don't have to be used?
Oh,
So you
great
did
question.
your campaign, and you got a bunch of money lying around. What can you do?
Great question. If you raised money and you went and you didn't use them, what can you do? If you won, what generally people do is they tend to open, even if you lost, you can open a new committee for the next election or a future election. With the exception of this, you can't go from a state to a federal. They're regulated by 2 different entities. So in my instance, I'll just give you mine. I had leftover funds after 2014 and 2016. I never wanted to have debt. So I just opened a new re-election committee. You can transfer those funds over there. When I lost in 2018, I had some leftover funds, so I put them in a subsequent future run for assembly. I've now had to close that account because in order to serve on this commission, you cannot be a candidate. So I donated almost all of it to charity. And there are other things that happen to it. You can give the money back to your donors. For some reason, that usually doesn't happen. But you give it to donors. You can also let them, after 90 days, they become surplus, which means you're restricted in anything you can use them for, and it's generally only educational purposes. And most people don't want to do that because it's a landmine how to comply with that. So there are rules about that. And it's particularly relevant when people open a committee, an organization, they raise money, and they never file to run for office. And now sometimes that's because they change their mind at the last minute and they're figuring out what they're going to do next, and they have 90 days to do that. Other times it's to be a grifter and to just raise money, and people realize, boy, I can raise money and I can be paying myself as my own campaign consultant. And that's what we watch out for. So, yeah. Thank you for having me and for the work that you do.
Very, very interesting subject. Thank you for serving us, Catherine. So now we're going to go to the other part of our meeting. Please don't stand. We've already done the pledge, but we will say for a second time today, welcome Rotarians and guests to the Rotary Club of Pleasanton.
World's greatest Rotary Club.
Now Ricky's going to run a song for us. Catherine, if you'd like to have lunch, the line is open.
Hello, Rotarians and guests. Today we're going to one heart, one club. Let's
to it. One club, one club. Let's get together, do good, have fun. We do wheelchairs and the steering run. Let's get together, do good, have fun. Rotary gives thanks and when the work is done. Let's get together, do good, have fun. One heart, one club, one club. Let's get together, do good, have fun. Peace to solace, a new day has come. Let's get together, do good, have fun. Mother, daughter, father, son. Let's get together, do good, have fun. One heart, one club, one club. Let's get together, do good, have fun. One heart, one club. Let's get together, do good, have fun.
Well, it's David here. It's We Care time, and Marjorie is going to take the mic. And thank you, Robert, for bailing him out. So we're going to watch a short 3-minute video. Last year, past President Ginger started
a billionaire who wants to have
video every week, and that's what we're going to do right now.
For each of us, there are moments that define us. Moments where we fought for what we believed.
A moment Berliners have waited 28 years for.
When we pushed the boundaries to the unknown. Moments that remind us of a past we cannot accept, and that create within us the desire to take a stand and do something. 30 years ago, polio was claiming the lives of hundreds of thousands of children just like me. There was a vaccine that could help stop it, but it wasn't reaching all of us. Until you decided to step in and do something. You decided to find a way to reach us all, no matter where in the world we might be. It all started with one small project, and 6 million children were saved from polio forever. The world took notice, and things began to change. On streets, on trains, planes, boats and bicycles, over deserts and rivers, mountains and valleys, through jungles and war zones, you never stopped. But it can't end here. We are this close, the closest that we've ever been. 3 countries remain, and we must continue to strive to reach every last child. Because every life truly does matter. And together, you have proved that when you put service above self, the world can be a much better place.
Since 1985, Rotary has been the foundation on which the polio eradication program is built.
Last year, we saw just 37 cases, the lowest number in history.
Thanks to your efforts, more than 16 million people are walking today who would otherwise have been paralyzed.
Thanks to your vision, humanity is on the verge of one of the greatest public health achievements in history.
While our work is not yet done, the remarkable dream that you had 3 decades ago to tackle one of the world's greatest public health challenges, the end of polio, is nearly a reality.
Thanks to you, we truly are this close to ending polio.
Thanks to you, we are truly this close to ending polio.
Thank you, Ricky. We are in the home stretch of this meeting. We're going to have 2 more things that are going to happen. Brad Hurst is going to give us an announcement, and then we will end our meeting with a foundation board update from Steve Van Dorn. Give us a financial review of what's going on with the foundation. Brad, would you like to?
I don't think I need a microphone. Next Thursday, there's no meeting here. Will somebody tell Mike Osterman? It's going to be
We'll make sure he knows.
Thursday at Amador Valley Community Park behind the Aquatic Center on Black Avenue. So if you know where the swimming pool is, you drive inside, past the swimming pool, there's a large picnic area with picnic tables, a lot of shade, and restrooms. You are encouraged to bring your spouse or companion, and if you like a picnic, that would be great. It's BYOB, and I think everybody knows what that means. And so we look forward to next Thursday, and your host that day will be the incomparable Bill Wheeler and the vivacious Grace Nash.
All right. Thank you. Yes.
We have a short spirit run announcement also.
Oh, great. Would you like to go first, Larry?
Has a quick announcement.
Okay. Let's save the foundation for last.
Okay.
Go ahead, Gino.
Yeah, sorry.
Let's give him the mic.
Yeah. We are Brad and I, chairs of the sponsorship committee for the Spirit Run. Mary is the chair of our committee for Spirit Run. We are ramping up our efforts to get that underway. Brad and I and our committee made up of Brad, Bill and me, Jim Wilson, Grace Nash, Grace Nash, Mario family. That's our committee. We ramped up efforts. I've left flyers. It's a letter. It is a cover letter to go with the sponsorship form. Please take one with you. These will come out to you electronically. But we are ramping up our efforts to raise money. Our goal, the minimum baseline is $50,000. We hope to blow past that. We are at 31,000, thanks in large part already to the efforts of club members already. I mentioned John Sensible, once again stepping up. Studios, Julio, $5,000. Rotary home team, $2,500. I don't know the name of the company. Thank you. What's that again? California Engineering, $2,500. Oh, thanks to Brian Chetler, $2,500. Solomon Yang in Alameda, $2,500. From Workbench Hardware. You all know, thank you very much. Rotarians whose donations are in process, including one from Workbench. So I'll have more on that. Please, we need everybody's help to raise money. The flyers are going out electronically, so you'll all have a copy that you can send by email. If you have any questions or want to make referrals, contact me. or Brad, and we'll take care of it. Again, I appreciate your attention. We appreciate your help. This is going to be a fantastic, record-breaking fundraising event. It is the largest fundraiser for this club. We do it annually. And we're looking forward to a great event this year. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Gino. And I'm going to give the mic to Catherine Baker for one last announcement.
Yeah, I miss having the microphone in front of me all the time, so I have to take it. The Spirit Run announcement reminds me of a special thank you I wanted to give you. My son is in Troop 911, which you sponsor. And last night, he had his Eagle Scout word review and passed. Thank you to this club for supporting scouting. I've seen the difference it makes in a young person, you know, connecting with other people, valuing their communities and their country. And I'm so personally very grateful. I teared up when they announced he made an Eagle. It was 4 days before his birthday, terming out, by the way. But thank you for that work. Don't forget that you do that. Troop 911 does the waters typically. When it used to be Father's Day, it was my husband who was the liaison for the waters to set up the tables and otherwise. So we want to help you any way we can with that, which means I've just now volunteered to be a water person. Gino knows where to find me, but a personal thank you for the support of Scouts.
Thank you, Catherine. And I just have a real quick update. Don Lewis, unfortunately, would normally be doing this, but I wanted just to, on behalf of the foundation, give you an update and remind you how important it is to give to the event that's coming up, the Spirit Run, and what it does and how we contribute to the community. And this is just a quick overview of the community grants that we gave out this last year. And most of you, I think, heard this already, but I just want to recap. We gave out $21,050 to groups such as Agape Villages, Boy Scout Troop 911, Culinary Angels, Friends of Pleasanton Senior Center, Harrington Gallery, Hively, Hope Hospice, Museum on Main, Open Heart Kitchen, PPIE, Steve's back there, Rotary International, Shepherd's Gate, Sunflower Hill, Tri-Valley Haven, and Tri-Valley Reach. So that just, I wanted to make sure we kept that in mind because that's why we're doing this stuff and having this great run coming up. And to just give you an idea of what we've given in the past few years, just to give you an analysis, we gave back in 2015 around $16,000 in community grants, $30,000 in 2016, $33,000 in 2017, $37,000 in 2018, and then 21,000 last year. So, and this is just one of the things that we use that money that will be raised at the Spirit Run and other events that we do to contribute to our community. So thank you for your time and appreciate your support. Foundation members for all the wonderful service that they're providing to our club. Steve didn't mention scholarships. We gave 61,000 and change to 18 kids last month in Pleasanton. So that's a primary focus of our.
That's right. And a lot of wheelchairs, right? So, ladies and gentlemen, this meeting is adjourned. Oh, wait a minute. Bob's going to try to give away some money. I forgot. It's not on my agenda.
I heard earlier that anything that's not used, I can keep. I must have heard that wrong. So, okay, it's 0865. First number. 0865.
Julio. If you're leaving, don't forget to take a cookie. Yeah.
Nope, go back in there. All right, and the next one is 0852. 0852. One ticket you got. Larry Ann is the big spender, said you can buy one ticket. No, you got to pull out the red.
You got to pick the right chip. Yeah.
All right. 1 minute early. Have a great afternoon. We're adjourned.